Welcome to the Smart Keys podcast. By the time you finish listening to this deep dive, your brain will have subconsciously tried to distract you at least 10 times.
Easily 10 times.
Where?
Probably more, honestly.
Right. And here is the truly jarring part. According to the research we are looking at today, it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully recover from just one of those distractions.
23 minutes.
Oh.
Just to get back to where you were.
Exactly. So if you get interrupted 3 times in a morning, you haven't just lost a few seconds to a notification. You have effectively burned an hour of deep, productive work just in transition time alone.
It's a massive drain.
It really is. And, you were listening to this because you are the learner. You are someone who is naturally curious, highly driven, but frankly, you're exhausted by the digital static of the modern workday.
Yeah, that constant noise.
You want to execute at a high level, but navigating the constant pings, video calls, and overlapping apps, well, it makes it feel like you are running a marathon in knee-deep mud.
And that cognitive mud is a very real, measurable phenomenon. I mean, the modern professional landscape has fundamentally changed, and attention is now a professional's absolute most valuable asset.
The ultimate currency, right?
Exactly. It is the currency of the modern knowledge economy. Yet we treat it like an infinite resource. We walk into our offices or boot up our laptops at home, assuming that if we just try a little harder, we can power through the noise.
Like we just need to grit our teeth and focus.
Right. But the infographics and data mapped out in our source material today, they illustrate a much harsher reality. The internet is quite literally engineered for distraction.
Engineered. It's not an accident.
Not at all. Social media platforms, news sites, and even our most essential workplace communication tools, they rely on novelty and variable rewards.
Yeah.
They utilize the exact same psychological mechanisms as slot machines to keep you scrolling and checking.
And that completely reframes the issue because we walk around carrying this immense guilt thinking like, I lack discipline, I just need more willpower.
Which is a trap.
Total trap. Willpower is a finite resource. Your brain is expending physical metabolic energy just deciding not to look at a Slack notification that just popped up on the corner of your screen.
That takes actual work for your brain.
It does, and that is why today's deep dive is so crucial. We are pulling from a comprehensive strategic guide published on smartkeys.org. It's written by Felix Römer, and it's titled Focus Tools, Simple Aids to Help You Concentrate Better at Work.
It's a fantastic resource.
It really is. And to be clear right out of the gate, this is not a list of cutesy life hacks. This is an architectural blueprint for modern professionals who need to build sustainable business efficiency and, most importantly, protect their cognitive bandwidth.
Because sitting in that cognitive mud, hoping your willpower magically strengthens, it just isn't going to get complex projects finished.
No, it's not.
The staggering cost of those 23-minute refocus penalties is what businesses and high-performing individuals really need to wake up to.
Yeah, that transition cost is brutal.
When you are deep in a spreadsheet or, say, drafting a strategic proposal, your brain is holding dozens of variables in its working memory. A single ping drops all of those variables.
You just drop all the plates you're spinning?
Exactly. Reassembling them takes immense effort, which severely degrades not just individual output, but overall organizational momentum.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if willpower is a losing battle against the brilliant engineers who design these distraction platforms, we have to shift our approach.
We need a structural change.
Right. We need tactical software tools that step in and act as actual guardrails for our attention, removing the burden of choice entirely. And Römer's guide goes into a fantastic spectrum of website blockers that intervene directly in that process.
They really cover the whole range.
They do. So on the heavy-duty, absolute lockdown end of the spectrum, you have an app called Freedom, which is a powerhouse because it features multi-device sync.
That cross-device functionality is key.
It's huge. It cuts off your escape routes across your Windows machine, your Mac, your phone, everything simultaneously. And then you have Cold Turkey Blocker, which features this notorious frozen turkey mode.
Oh, that mode is intense.
It's terrifying. When you turn that on, you are locked in. You literally cannot bypass it or uninstall it until the timer runs out.
What's fascinating here is the underlying neurology of how these tools intervene. A blocker literally breaks the habit loop.
The trigger, routine, reward loop.
Exactly. Neurologically, a habit consists of those three things. So when you hit a difficult patch in your work, say you just don't know how to phrase an email, you feel a microdose of stress.
And that's the trigger.
Right. That stress is the trigger. Your ingrained routine is to automatically open a new tab and check the news or social media, and the reward is a tiny hit of dopamine that temporarily relieves that stress.
So the blocker just steps right in the middle of that.
It does. A heavy-duty blocker intercepts that routine. By putting an impenetrable wall between the impulse and the reward, it forces your brain to confront the friction of the work instead of taking the easy escape hatch.
I love how the guide doesn't just push those nuclear options, though. It offers a whole menu depending on your specific behavioral weak points.
You have to find what works for you.
Exactly. Think about it this way. If cold turkey is a concrete wall that you crash into when you try to procrastinate, an extension like 1 sec is more like a speed bump.
That's a great way to put it.
It forces a mindful pause, making you wait just a few seconds and take a breath before a site loads. And then an app like Pawblock acts like a highly manipulative, friendly security guard.
The cartoon animals.
Yes. You try to go to a distracting site, and a sad little cartoon animal looks at you. I have to admit, there's nothing quite as humbling as being outsmarted and guilt-tripped by a passive-aggressive digital golden retriever.
Especially when you're trying to secretly check sports scores during a budget review.
Exactly. It's so embarrassing, but it works.
And building on that speed bump analogy, the reason a tool like 1sec is so highly effective is precisely because it introduces friction.
So that's a tiny bit of friction.
Yeah, psychologically, even a 3 to 5 second delay disrupts that automatic dopamine loop. By the time the site finally loads, your conscious brain has caught up with your subconscious impulse.
And you realize you don't actually even want to be on that website.
Precisely. The strategic insight Römer offers is matching the tool to the severity of your habit. For some, a free browser extension like LeechBlock NG provides enough friction.
Just that little nudge.
But if you find yourself constantly bypassing a blocked browser by simply, picking up your smartphone, that is when it becomes strategically necessary to upgrade to a paid cross-device system like Freedom.
You just have to seal all the exits.
You do. You have to seal all the exits if your impulse to escape is particularly strong.
Block the phone, block the tablet, block the desktop. But, well, blocking the bad stuff is really only half the equation, right?
It's just the baseline.
Because once the digital noise is completely silenced, you're just sitting there staring at a blinking cursor. Unstructured time can actually induce a completely different kind of paralysis.
The dread of the blank page.
Yeah, we have to structure the silence. And that brings us to architecting our time. Now, we all know the basics of the classic 25-5 Pomodoro technique.
Sure, 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off.
Right. But Römer's guide actually advocates for moving beyond that rigid structure and adapting the cycles to your specific neurochemistry and the task at hand.
That adaptation is critical. The standard 25-minute sprint was designed for relatively straightforward tasks.
Like clearing out an inbox.
Right. But the modern knowledge worker frequently engages in deep, complex problem solving, like coding a new software architecture or writing a comprehensive legal brief.
Things that take real mental ramping up.
Exactly. Those tasks require flow state. It can take 15 minutes just to load all the necessary context into your working memory.
So if you stop at 25 minutes...
If an alarm goes off at minute 25 and forces you to stop, you are artificially breaking your own flow.
Which is exactly why the guide suggests stretching to a 37 cycle or even a deeper 48-12 cycle for complex work.
You really need that longer block.
You get 48 uninterrupted minutes to actually build momentum. And to manage these custom cycles, they highlight an app called Session.
Session is a great tool.
It goes way beyond being a simple countdown clock. It has these powerful automations where the second you hit start, it automatically mutes Slack, updates your calendar so colleagues know you are busy, and triggers all your focus shortcuts.
It creates a pristine digital environment instantly.
Instantly. It's like magic.
It removes the administrative friction. You don't have to spend 5 minutes manually turning on Do Not Disturb across 4 different communication applications.
Which is, let's be honest, just another opportunity to get distracted by an incoming message. Let me play devil's advocate here for a second, though, because we need to talk about the workflow narrative. The guide lists a veritable buffet of task managers.
It does list quite a few.
It highlights Trello for fast visual Kanban boards. It brings up Asana for team-wide shared prioritization. It mentions Coggle for visually mind-mapping the bigger picture.
Oh, powerful tools.
Very powerful. Imagine you are starting an annual report. Instead of staring at a blank page, you open Coggle to visually map the chapters, which is great for lowering the barrier to entry. But Doesn't managing this entire ecosystem just become a new, highly sophisticated form of procrastination?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I know people who can spend 4 hours color-coding a Coggle mind map, meticulously organizing Trello cards, and proudly call it work without ever writing a single word of the actual report.
That is a very dangerous trap, often referred to as productivity porn.
Productivity porn. That is the perfect term for it.
You feel productive because you are organizing, but you aren't actually executing anything. Römer's article explicitly emphasizes a core rule to combat this. Keep a lean setup and maintain one single source of truth.
One source of truth. So don't put the same task in 3 different apps.
Exactly. You might use Coggle for a 15-minute brainstorm, but the actionable steps must immediately migrate to your one central system, like Asana, for instance.
Right.
You should never be duplicating tasks across multiple platforms. The ultimate goal of these tools is to lower your cognitive load, not fragment it across 6 different logins.
Okay, so the brainstorming lives in the mind map, but the actual execution lives on a single definitive list.
Precisely.
And when you look at that list, the guide introduces a concept that completely changes the game, micro-productivity. This isn't just about breaking tasks down. It's about manipulating our own biology, right?
Exactly. This is where we tap directly into the brain's dopamine reward system.
Which is fascinating.
It is. Because dopamine isn't just a reward chemical. It is a motivation chemical. If you put a task on your list that says, write annual report, your brain perceives a massive, insurmountable mountain.
And it completely freezes up.
That triggers the stress response, which, as we discussed, immediately kicks off the habit loop looking for an escape behavior.
Enter the passive-aggressive digital golden retriever.
Exactly. But if you shrink that task down to a 5-minute microtask that simply says, draft 3 bullet points for the introduction, the friction to start practically vanishes.
Because it's a small hill you can easily step over. And when you finish those 3 bullet points and check that box,
You receive a micro hit of dopamine.
there it is.
That chemical release fuels your motivation to start the next 5-minute task. You are artificially engineering a positive feedback loop that builds immense momentum out of tiny, manageable steps.
That is brilliant. And to help you climb those little hills, the article introduces a fascinating sensory tool, binaural beat technology, or BBT.
This is where the science gets really interesting.
It sounds like science fiction. The guide states that mid-beta and gamma frequencies are tied to alertness, but how is an audio track actually doing that?
If we connect this to the bigger picture of human biology, it is actually a highly mechanical process.
Okay.
Binaural beats work by playing 2 slightly different audio tones simultaneously, one in each ear. For example, if you play a 400 Hz tone in your left ear and a 440 Hz tone in your right ear, your brain attempts to bridge the gap between those 2 inputs.
It tries to make sense of the difference.
Exactly. And in doing so, it effectively creates, and here's a third, phantom beat of 40 Hz.
Wow.
That specific 40 Hz frequency naturally encourages your brainwaves to synchronize with it. This is called neural entrainment.
Neural entrainment.
By targeting mid-beta or gamma frequencies, you are physically inducing a state of heightened cognitive flexibility and alertness.
So you aren't just sitting there desperately telling your brain to focus, you are actively feeding it an acoustic environment that physically forces it into alignment.
You're giving your ears a job to do.
That's incredible. And if engineered beats are too intense, the guide notes that steady ambient noises like cafe chatter or rain serve a similar function,
They do. They act as an acoustic anchor.
masking those random, unpredictable office noises that constantly hijack our attention.
It stabilizes your acoustic environment, which in turn stabilizes your cognitive environment.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Having the perfect 48-minute timer, the optimal binaural beats, and the strictest website blocker is fantastic in a vacuum.
But we don't work in a vacuum.
We work in reality. We work in chaotic, open-plan offices, or at home where the dog barks, the delivery driver knocks, and the Wi-Fi drops. How do we take this pristine architectural blueprint and actually integrate it into a messy daily routine?
That integration is where the concept of the momentum morning becomes essential.
Okay, walk me through that.
Interestingly, the most critical part of the morning workflow actually happens the night before. Yes, you should never wake up and expend precious cognitive energy deciding what to do. You write a smart list before bed, Just 3 specific, measurable, time-bound items. You wake up with your priorities already locked in.
And then you wake up and execute the 2-minute technology timeout.
Crucial step.
Before you even look at an email or check a Slack channel, you take 2 minutes to intentionally silence non-essential apps on your phone, close all those lingering browser tabs from the day before, and open only the single application you need to accomplish task number 1.
It is about aggressively protecting your attention when your cognitive battery is at its absolute fullest.
First thing in the morning.
Exactly. The Momentum Morning Blueprint strongly advises keeping your first 30 to 60 minutes entirely free from external inputs. No social media, no email, no news.
Protect the perimeter.
That first hour is an investment. If you protect it and execute a high-impact task, you spark lasting momentum. You're essentially building a reservoir of cognitive endurance that will carry you through the inevitable decision fatigue that hits around 2:00 p.m.
But again, reality inevitably intervenes. What happens when that momentum breaks? What happens when a project suddenly gets vastly more complicated than you expected?
The guide is incredibly pragmatic about failure points. It instructs us to anticipate our specific escape behaviors.
Oh, we all have them.
We do. It might be sudden, overwhelming physical fatigue. It might be the urge to go rummage through the pantry for a snack the moment a spreadsheet formula breaks.
Or the sudden, urgent conviction that your email inbox needs to be categorized and color-coded right this very second, even though you have a massive deadline looming.
Precisely. Those are all subconscious evasion tactics. The strategy is to plan active countermeasures before the urge ever hits.
So cut it off at the pass?
Exactly. If your historical escape behavior is mindless snacking, portion your snacks out the night before and leave them out of sight. Keep a large bottle of water at your desk.
Simple but effective.
If sudden fatigue is your brain's way of shutting down, implement a hard rule that you must stand up and stretch for exactly 60 seconds before you're allowed to walk away.
Oh, I like that.
And if email organization is your procrastination tool, rely on your blockers to lock you out of your inbox outside of 3 pre-scheduled 20-minute windows during the day.
One of my absolute favorite tactical tips from this entire guide, and arguably the simplest, was the quick resume sticky note.
Oh, that's a brilliant one.
It is so brilliantly effective. Picture this. You are in deep focus, writing a complex document. Suddenly your manager taps you on the shoulder or your dog starts intensely scratching at the door.
The bubble is popped.
Right. But before you pivot your chair or stand up, you grab a physical sticky note and write down the exact next microstep you are about to take. You literally write, next format column B for Q3 revenue. Then you handle the interruption.
And when you come back,
when you return, you don't have to spend 5 minutes trying to decipher where your brain was. You aren't staring at a screen trying to reload the context. You just read the sticky note, perform the action, and you instantly pick up the thread.
it is a profound mechanism because it offloads your working memory onto a piece of paper.
It's just a brain dump.
Exactly. That simple action completely mitigates the 23-minute refocus penalty we discussed at the top of the show. And this is exactly why this entire integrated system matters so deeply for businesses and individuals trying to maintain a competitive edge.
It's all connected.
It all circles back to sustainable efficiency. When you master microproductivity, and when you utilize blockers and acoustic anchors to lower the friction of starting, you transform your relationship with your work.
Taking that a step further, instead of a sudden distraction being a day-ruining disaster where you throw your hands up, declare your focus broken, and spend the next 2 hours on YouTube, it becomes a manageable 1-minute buffer.
It's just a bump in the road.
Yeah, you take a breath, handle the distraction, look at your sticky note, restart your adapted timer, and you are immediately back in the game. You are in control.
This raises an important question, something we should all consider as we log back on today.
All right, what's that?
Everything Felix Römer outlines in this guide points to the undeniable fact that concentration is a trainable skill. It is not a fixed genetic trait you are simply born with or without.
That's very empowering.
It is. So knowing that, are we viewing our daily digital habits as passive consumption, or are we recognizing that we are in the mental gym every single hour of the day?
Wow, the mental gym.
Because every time we give in to an impulse click, we are actively training our brain to seek distraction. But every time we utilize a blocker, set a timer, and push through the friction, we are actively training our cognitive endurance. The choice of what we practice is entirely up to us.
Progress beats perfection every single time. And you know, if you are feeling overwhelmed by the sheer volume of tools we just covered, the guide offers a brilliantly simple starting point. Don't overhaul your entire life today.
Keep it simple.
Pick just one blocker. Pick one custom timer. Make one simple list of 3 items tonight. And lean heavily on the 2-minute rule within your microtasking. If a random task pops up and it takes less than 2 minutes to complete, don't categorize it or schedule it. Just do it immediately to clear the mental clutter.
Just get it done.
Exactly. So what does this all mean? It means you have the power to take your attention back. You do not have to be a passive victim of brilliant engineers and sophisticated algorithms. We want to explicitly thank you, the listener, for tuning in to the Smart Keys podcast.
Thanks for listening.
We know your time and especially your focus are incredibly precious commodities, and we appreciate you choosing to spend them with us today. Please subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a deep dive into the resources that keep you ahead of the curve. And I strongly encourage you to read Felix Römer's full, comprehensive article, Focus Tools, Simple Aids to Help You Concentrate Better at Work.
It is packed with great visual aids, too.
It is packed with visuals and detailed breakdowns of the tools we discussed today. You can find the direct link right in the show notes. As you head back into your workday, to face those video calls and those relentless desktop pings, ask yourself, what is the one guardrail you can build right now to protect your most valuable asset?